Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well. My name is AJ Valenti. I want to welcome you to Personal Channel. And today we're going to be talking about what it's like biking in the United States of America. We're also going to touch on some public transportation and talk about the history on how we actually got to be a car-centered country. I hope that you also learned something along the way. And for my regular watchers, my subscribers that come every time, I do just want to let you know that I have been focusing on like the financial channel. So if you want to see more of my content, then you can obviously go there, link in the description. So with that being said, let's get right into it. All right, so now we're going to take a look at some of the bike routes or maybe lack of bike routes that I have biked recently and in the past overall, just give you an idea of some of the issues with it and also some of the good things. We have a sidewalk over here. We have whatever this is, just some grass and dirt. And then we have a narrow road. What I want to point out here is that a lot of the biking that I've done, about maybe 1 to 2 times a week, to either maybe go to a park to go exercise or just actually bike as my exercise. And what I found, I live in Detroit, Michigan, and used to live in Northern California. What I've noticed is that there's just a lack of biking infrastructure. In a lot of cases, you have to bike on the sidewalk, even though I think it's technically illegal to do that, but it's obviously not going to be enforced if it's impossible to bike anywhere else. Like right here in this picture, you see no bike lane. And this is one of the streets that you kind of have to be on to get to the other side of either, in this case, a railroad track or sometimes a freeway or a highway, because it's like a choke point where this is the only way to get through without having to go all the way around to a different street. And so I'll take you down here. There's a sidewalk now on the right side. We've skipped ahead to the end of the street, and now we're coming up on another main road here. So I want to take a look. Again, there's not going to be a bike lane here. It's actually very rare for me to get a bike lane. And I don't need bike lanes in like a residential area. But if it's on a main road, like it's just not safe to have no bike lane and still ride on the street. So, I'll take to the sidewalk most of the time. And as you'll notice, as we go over here, if I was going on the right, which I have been on this exact spot before, essentially sidewalk starts to end right here. And it just becomes grass. And so you just have to all of a sudden bike through the grass. You come up on a bunch of cars, I guess a driveway here. Then eventually you get some more sidewalk. Either if there is a bike lane, sometimes it just ends, or it's very difficult or unsafe in some scenarios because the cars have to merge into the bike lane to actually turn at some points. Other times, sidewalks or bike lanes just end. In my hometown, this is a bike route that I took going back and forth between community college when I did bike to classes. And I'll point out there is a bike lane here. Whoopee. I could say that. But you see there's different colors here. So this is an asphalt, this black here. And then on this side, it's more the sidewalk cement color. And it's essentially like walking on a tightrope because this different ground material, I guess, there's a lip in between. And so they're not on the same level. So you either have to be right next to the sidewalk or you have to be right next to the road. Okay, so I went a little bit further down the street here and essentially the bike lane did end. What I would normally do is go up here on the sidewalk, up to the light, you stay at the sidewalk. But essentially if you wanted to turn right on that stoplight, you have a very narrow bike lane again, and you could essentially just fall into a ditch because there's just a ditch there, and that's cool. And this is actually an example of a good bike lane. First of all, this building right here, this is a structure, and fun fact, this is my favorite structure in the entire world, at least up to this point that I've ever seen. And this is Michigan Central Station. That's just kind of beside the point. But right next to that is a nice bike lane. So you'll see right here, you've got the green color. It's not the whole way, but essentially there's barriers right here, and there's parking spots on this road that actually separate the bike lane, which is over here on the right, to the rest of the road. Maybe this is not perfect, but that's a good first step. Making sure that there's safety on your bike routes is always a plus. And another plus right here, this is in Minneapolis. I just went to Minneapolis and picked a random place, and this is actually a greenway. What a greenway is essentially a bike only or a pedestrian only or both route. And so you can see, you've got the bike lanes here, which is essentially the entire thing. And this is a bridge that goes over a highway, which is at least where I see the most trouble. And actually in Detroit, they're building a 26-mile long greenway that goes around the entire city, which is very cool, but it's going to take a lot of time to finish. But overall, there's also a very concerted effort into improving things like biking, walkability, public transportation, and overall livability scores, because those all contribute to each other. Transportation options are much cheaper. They're healthier, especially with biking and walking, and also they're good for the environment compared to a car. It's looking like we're turning a corner, but especially compared to other countries that I've seen, we're just very far behind. Another story relating to horrible roads and infrastructure and stuff like that. There was a video I was watching, and I was talking about a person who in Houston, they were staying at a hotel. They just wanted to walk or go to the store that was like a couple hundred feet away. And they actually had to take an Uber because there were multiple sidewalks where it was just grass, and it was like a car dealership. And also there was this narrow bridge. The sidewalk was literally, I want to say it was probably this wide. You have to sidestep across this bridge. This will be linked in the description, but it's a list of the most bike-friendly cities and also the least bike-friendly cities. We see LA as the least. Houston is obviously right there, but some of the top ones, San Francisco, Seattle, Portland on here. So I'll hover over this next image here while I talk about some of the issues that have actually led to this sort of a transportation crisis, if you will. So there's zoning laws, there's construction of highways, there's lack of funding, there's political and business kind of sabotage, and there's also urban sprawl, which if you don't know what urban sprawl is, it's basically this picture on your screen here. Residential areas, these may be suburbs, these may be outside the city center, still within city limits, but essentially it's like all these windy roads, like cul-de-sacs, courts. It's the opposite of what a grid is. So vertical streets and horizontal streets that would make it easy to get between, locations and actually have public transportation take you down those straight lines. This is quite difficult, and if you are a city planner, I am sorry, because you're probably throwing up on your screen right now as you look at this picture. And also when I talk about zoning laws, those are laws that separate residential areas from commercial areas. That causes a problem because when you're trying to go to work, there's just a further distance between your job and your house, in addition to urban sprawl, and also the construction of highways, which kind of destroy what may have been a grid, but may have been a connecting street. All these factors kind of combine to make it a necessary thing to own a car to be able to get to the places you need to go. As a matter of fact, in the United States of America, about 90% of people own a car, and the average household has 1.8 cars. The necessity of owning a car, in turn, obviously makes that biking and public transportation and walking even less common and more difficult. But it actually wasn't always like that. So in the early 1900s, even up to the World War II era, public transportation was pretty good in a lot of cities. And now it's only good in a handful, maybe two handfuls. You would think that people own cars and then, the highways and all these roads were made. But it actually was the other way around, where public transportation got stripped down and highways were built, which forced people to actually buy cars because it became the only viable option. People think that you're going to ease up traffic by adding multiple lanes, but making more lanes actually just makes a bigger obstacle to try to get around. That's why you see maybe government project where they're adding more lanes, but the effect on traffic really doesn't change because it just forces more people to use a car. If you are enjoying the video, you like public transportation, you like biking, walking, all these sort of city planning type things, be sure to hit the thumbs up, give me a subscription If you want to see some more, notification bell if you want to be notified when I upload a video. And leave me a comment about what your city or what you would like to see in terms of public transportation, any perspective and ideas. Maybe you're in a different country. Let me know in the comments. I know about Detroit's history in public transportation and what happened there. These companies bought up streetcars and buses and trolleys and whatever was available, and they kind of monopolized the public transportation sector. Detroit had one of the best public transportation systems in the nation. There would be what may be seen as really good infrastructure right now, and it would actually just be like demolished to actually center around the car. In 1956, the last streetcar in Detroit was sold to Mexico City, who, funny enough, they have a fantastic public transportation system down there in Mexico City. But, after that, it was just buses. If you just want to see the article that I was reading up on to look at some of Detroit's public transportation history, that'll be linked in the description. Cars may look like the villain here, but it's not really cars. I still see a future where we use cars, and I'm not saying that we should just get rid of cars and just go public transportation on you and just go biking or walking. I think that the consensus agreement is that those things are good, but especially like in rural areas where public transportation doesn't make any sense to invest in that, because it's just not going to provide a solid return on investment. In city settings, cars can still make sense. I still see like a great road being that maybe in the middle there's 2 specific lanes for either buses or streetcars or whatever, and then the next lane is for car, and then there's some sort of barrier separating the bike lane, and that's the main road, and that's allows for rapid bus, where there's a specific bus lane. It also allows for the cars, and it allows bikes, and hopefully there's a sidewalk there as well. But I do want to touch on like mixed use development, because that separation between residential and commercial really causes a problem. Hopefully we can, especially in the new areas that we're building, maybe we can't change what we've already built, but we should keep that in mind, and I think we should be good from there. There's been times in the past where we've had opportunities, but that's where you gotta vote if you have an opportunity to vote. This is with any issue really. Email your city council. Make sure your voice is heard if you do want change. Especially in the US, what I've noticed is that it's very hard to pass laws. A lot of fighting that leads to overall inaction, and it leads to us just being behind. And if you are wondering like public transportation isn't profitable, or if you're saying something like that, that's a fair argument, I think. If you've seen anything about Hong Kong and what their public transportation is, it actually turns a huge profit. Cities like San Francisco, where 80% of their costs associated with upkeep and whatnot are paid for by the fares, so it can be done. If you're going into the mindset of it's just not going to make us money, we're going to lose so much money, then it's not going to be good. I think humans are very intelligent, and I think we can get it done if we just have the right people creating and crafting that plan. So with that being said, I hope you did enjoy the video. I hope you learned something. Leave any sort of comments you have down below, and I would love to hear your experience with any of these topics, and I hope to see you next time. Peace.